song to you, my beautiful people. My beautiful people, come and sing along, yeah.
Greetings from Ghana, Akwaba. This is Black History Month, and we continue our series highlighting Black excellence. And today, I have a very special guest who the ambassador calls the Martin Luther King of our time. I'm talking about the all-eminent and glorious Rabbi Kohain Halevi. Now, Rabbi has been in Ghana for the past 30 years, and I understand that his journey was not a walk on the park, but a walk in the jungle, because it's not easy for him to have come to the motherland. And so today we'll be talking with Rabbi as we actually promote Black excellence. Rabbi, you are most welcome to the DAF Embassy for the Diaspora. How do you feel to be here?
Oh, I feel excellent to be here, and I feel good, especially during this season of Black History Month.
Great. As I said earlier, you coming to the motherland and what you have been able to achieve. I just want to understand, how was your childhood even like? Growing up in the U.S. and the perception about Africa. How did your childhood really influence you coming to the motherland? Can you share with us?
Certainly, it's a pleasure to share that. First of all, I'd like to thank Almighty God and the spirit of our ancestors on that very question, because as a young man growing up in the United States of America, we know that the stereotypes of Mother Africa were always in a negative platform. So came to a generation where the rebirth of pride of being Black and being African was a part of that generation that I'm born into and proud to be able to say a product of, because it was a time when a conscious effort was made to recover our collective memory. Because unfortunately, through the process of enslavement and colonialism, much of our history had been erased and made obscure on the world stage, so that even Africans themselves had lost our mind, our memory, and our history. So Black History Month, which evolved out of Negro History Week, actually played a major role in recovering the memory of Africans and the great contributions that we have made. And I like to say I'm one of the products made out of that era, that not only recognizing and observing Black History Month, but becoming a part of that history.
I see, becoming a part of that history. Now let us talk about you moving to Ghana. What was the inspiration behind that? Why even Ghana?
Well, the inspiration behind that was, again, where we just left in terms of my childhood exposure, what was happening during the era of the 60s and the 70s in America. Remember, we started, using the slogan, songs, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. Began a generation of being proud of the features that Almighty God had created us in terms of our kinky hair, our broad noses, our beautiful thick lips, and most of all, our melanin. And so in that respect, having been a product of that time, the source was Africa, and my curiosity was lit with Africa. I was born in New York, only 23 minutes away from Harlem, New York. Some of our greatest African figures actually came through and walked those streets and talked to audiences of African people. The Asajib Dr. Kwame Nkrumah himself, visited Harlem, New York and spent time there. The Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey spent time there. Malcolm X had his temple there. So to be able to walk those streets as a young man and the generation be influenced by such sterling figures inspired my curiosity about Africa. And I felt that even though they were cut off in the flower of their life, Marcus Garvey was deported from the United States of America almost exactly 100 years ago from now. We find that Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were cut off in the flower of their life. And I felt as a young man making my choices in life that just because their physical bodies were cut off, their vision needed to carry on. And their vision needed to carry on through us. We needed to become the embodiment of the vision they shared with us as messengers sent to lift up the minds and the status and the quality of life of African people by helping us to renew our minds. So I wanted to come to Africa as a way of fulfilling their vision as being the forefathers and foremothers that helped put Africa back on our mind in a positive way. I remember hearing one of the speeches of Malcolm X 65 years ago, and the tapes that they had made on that, when he was addressing audience in the South and people saying that Well, I don't want to go back to Africa. I don't know Africa. I ain't left nothing in Africa. He said, well, you left your mind in Africa and you need to go back and recover it. So that rang out in me that I have to go to this mysterious place called Africa and find out what the ancestors have in store for me. So my short answer to that question that I pass most often of what inspired you to come here, I say prophecy and destiny.
Prophecy and destiny. I see. That is very inspiring. You know, I can actually see the passion that you have for Pan-Africanism, you know, talking about all of these iconic figures that you mentioned. I can actually see that you actually, you know, breathe Pan-Africanism. You live Pan-Africanism. And there was this powerful speech that she actually gave in one of our Diaspora integration, you know, conferences. And the moment you added your voice to the conversation, it was like an electrocuting moment. You see, you could see the spirit of Pan-Africanism. But I would like to find out from you, what does Pan-Africanism mean to you personally?
Pan-Africanism means to me the ideology, philosophy, and practice of African people putting themselves first in every aspect of our life, and being spiritually, socially, economically, and racially, and not having to feel that you need to apologize or ask anybody's permission to be in love with yourself as an African.
Okay, great. Now, talking about Africans, you know that we have Africans on the continent and Africans outside of the continent, the Americas and all of that. Do you think that Pan-Africanism would be a glue that binds us together, both Africans on the continent and Africans outside? Can you share like some of that stuff?
Yes, it is the glue. It is the glue that can make us find the common denominator and purpose and working together as a people. As much as we are separated by boundaries of nationalities that we've taken on in foreign lands, or even foreign nationalities that we've taken on in our motherland, the continent of Africa, it is the spirit of Pan-Africanism and the principles that represent that gives us the commonality of working together. Despite our ethnic differences, our linguistic differences, our geographical locations, it gives us an ism that we can work together as Africans. You know, our independence movements have been marked with a lot of isms, whether you want to adopt capitalism, socialism, communism. But I say as Africans, we adopt first Pan-Africanism, and we can sort ourselves out from the history of ourselves as African people.
Thank you very much. In a documentary, that's 500 years later, written by M.R. Asante, you made a very thought-provoking statement, and I would like you to share more light on that. In that documentary, you said, just as there was a process to make a colonial Africa, there has to be a process to remake the African slave in the African colonial mind. And, you know, in the preparation of this interview, I tried in my own little Pan-African mind, tried to put things together and understand, and I still could not. So can you please share more light on that?
Certainly, in the condition that we find ourselves in as a people has been produced by the centuries of enslavement and centuries of colonialism. And during that process, it was systematically perpetrated upon the African to adopt principles and values outside of our African-centric self. And so we were literally remade into colonial subjects and enslaved subjects. And that took centuries. So it was going to take time for us to get rid of our colonial mind and our mind of enslavement through systems that we've recreated as Africans to make ourselves over again in our own image and in our own likeness. So that is a control that we must take as the real liberation struggle. As we know, freedom comes from a compound word, and free means to liberate, and dome means the mind. So freedom means to liberate the mind. So we can remove ourselves from chains and from shackles and from colonial presence, but we have to free ourselves from a colonial mind and reimagine ourselves as Africans in our own image. The reason why I say our own image is because now the image of the African must be prodated up to the current situation that we're in this modern world. Instead of building that new African off the foundation of colonialism and enslavement or Western principles, it must be done basically on the foundation of what our ancestors had created for thousands of years, which would interrupt it through enslavement in colonialism. And that's what the real meaning of Sankofa is about. Go back to fetch it in order to go forward. Not go back, but go back and fetch that which is of value, that which is of substance, in order to not leave our ancestral collective wisdom in the past, but to bring it forward with us in the future.
To bring it forward with us in the future. Now, going back to the past, you realize that the storytelling of African people, talking about the transatlantic enslavement trade, you talk about in the Americas, and in America, in Barbados and Suriname, there was actually a novel by Richard Wright's native son. You could see the struggle of Bigger Thomas. You could also see so much struggle with our people and the role that we needed to play. So that actually lets you understand that the storytelling of African people always has to do with some sort of pain and struggle. Although we have the resilience in there, what do you think that the narrative should be about? As we go back, should the narrative moving forward and telling our story be more focused on our future? Do we just forget about the pain? What do you think the approach should be?
Well, the approach should be concentrating on our resilience to move forward to a bright future, to move forward with a vision that comes from ourselves. We don't ever want to forget our past, but we want to categorize it. And we want to categorize it in a place where it gives us strength to know that in spite of all that we went through, we were able to survive on the strength of our ancestors. Now, on that strength, what do we do with it? We take it into the future. We take it into the future to get rid of all the negative connotations that's been put upon the Black man, that we're lazy, that we're shiftless, we have no vision, we have no plan, we don't like each other, we're separated. All of these things are negative stereotypes that we must get rid of. How can we be lazy? And we built all of what we know as the new world, working from can't see in the morning to can't see at night, as we say, under enslavement. We were not the lazy ones. We were the industrious ones. A lot of the inventions and a lot of the things that we see that we give credit to the West for having invented. It's the Africans in the West that brought us into this world of technology. Remember, the Africans who came from here, they didn't go to no vocational schools or anything to make the brilliant contributions that we made intellectually, spiritually, socially, and every other category that you would judge a society. So in that respect, I would say that we need to recover, again, our African priorities, what we want to do as African people without asking anybody's permission, and have that vision for our future and work towards that future. I say where we're seated here right now, the Diaspora African Forum. This was a vision that Malcolm X had 60 years ago when he tried to go to the OAU and get a seat of representation for the diaspora, to sit at the table with our African leaders and heads of state so that the 22 million Africans in America at that time and the millions of them in other parts of the America or in the West or in Europe would have representation. Now we have a sixth region. Now we have an embassy, represented here. Now we have an ambassador. This is progress. This is going towards the future. But that future could not be obtained if we forgot our past. It's on the strength of having survived the past that no other people in the rest of humanity could have survived and still come out as resilient as we've come out. Still come out and able to bring compassion to world subject matters that are facing the world today. We produced some of the greatest humanitarian leaders of the 20th century. We produced the Martin Luther Kings. We produced the Malcolm X. We produced the Nelson Mandelas. We produced the Winnie Mandelas. We produced the Fannie Lou Hamer. We produced human beings of character that had world standard for humanity and for peace. This is a race of people that was classified outside of the human family. We were classified as being subhuman, but still the brilliance inside of us, the excellence inside of us that runs through our blood, through our DNA as a people, allowed us to rise above all those stereotypes, above all the harsh conditions that were not exaggerated. Out of all the harsh stories that have been told, there's a million that have not been told, and still we rise. That is the substance of the poem made by one of our great poetresses and stateswomen that came along, Maya Angelou. No matter what anybody else does to us, we've been able to turn it into gold. We're the true alchemists of the world. We have changed a base substance into solid gold. And that's who the African is. And we must be able to sell that narrative. We must be able to invest in that narrative. We must be able to become the embodiment of that narrative.
That is such a thought-provoking and insightful ideal that you've actually shared. I'd like to find out, what do you have to say about the celebration of the Black History Month? What does it mean? Tell us a bit of the background and information that needs to inspire us.
Thank you for that question. The importance of Black History Month can never ever be quantified in words. Started in the beginning by one of our brilliant minds, Connie Ritson, one of his greatest works besides creating this out of the Negro Journal, which actually started with gathering together Black intellectuals to be a part of a study group to research the accomplishments of quote unquote the Negro, the Black man, because the perpetrator, we had no history, and that's why you didn't see us in the history books. There were no accomplishments of Redwood Standard, and he wanted to refute that. So this Negro Journal, it publishes every year, turning through an observance of Negro History Week. It took our local churches, civic organizations, and anywhere to reconnect available to begin to teach our children about the great accomplishments of the Black man. And then it grew into Black History Month, except Negro History Week to Black History Month. That tells our growth and acceptance of who it is that we are as a people. We started with the history of the contributions of Black people to the building of the United States of America and other parts of the America. But then it went deeper than that. It went deeper into the discovery and the dissemination of information as to the global history of the Black man, being the fathers and mothers of civilization. It took it back to the Nile Valley civilization. It took it back to the Tagus and the Euphrates Basin. It took it back to the Congo Basin. It took us to the places that we occupied as a people. So what started out as a simple research on the history of the Black man's contribution to America actually revealed Black man's presence all over this globe. And the Nordic continent will find the history of the Black man as the first residence of the history of any human being. And the value of it can be untold because now generations were being born into that information, reborn into the brilliance and the acceptance of celebrating Red Belt, reborn into resisting the lies that the Black man and the Black woman had accomplishments in their lives. So we realized that Connie Wilson also was the first minister of education in the UAIA, Martha Valley movement. So you're great men of great brains that came together 100 years ago, actually. We're celebrating this century of Black History Month. And Peter Dunn-Murdy Association of College Richardson with the Honorable Martha Messiah Dobby. And then one of the most profound publications that Clarity Richardson made was a book called The Miseducation of the Negro, where he said that all of the educational systems that we were going through had trained us in the knowledge outside of ourselves, so that when you go through, quote unquote, the white man's educational system, the first thing you must do is recover from that miseducation and begin to educate yourself all over again as a Black man and Black woman to be truly educated, to be truly liberated, and to truly have your self-pride and self-esteem. And it's not a build-up self-esteem, it's a self-esteem based upon the exact true knowledge of who it is that we are as a people.
Who it is that we are as a people. Before we draw down the curtain, I'd like to end with this very important thing. We come to you, but I'd like to find out from you, 30 years back, and then knowing Ambassador Dr. Cabenos for like the past decades, seeing the work that the Diaspora African Fund has done in creating diaspora integration in the participation of African development, Ghana and across, Africa. What do you have to say about the good work that the Embassy for the African Diaspora had been doing for the past decades?
Well, again, I don't want to sound redundant, but words cannot describe the accomplishments of the work of our ambassador, Dr. Erica Bennett, in her capacity as ambassador for the Diaspora, see our capacity to bring into fruition the Diaspora African Forum, and then other embassy. I'm here to a crowd representing I did God for all of the African continent. And I had the honor, the pleasure, and the blessing of being able to work with her. Of course, work with her here in Ghana, travel throughout the African continent at AU summits, AU conferences. I represented sometimes in the capacity of representing back at some of these summits. And I can say that still the words have not been scribed, nor has the light been revealed to all the magnitude of this work. When I make reference to Malcolm X, I made a trip to the OAU in 1964 petitioning So such an institution like this, and Ambassador Bennett having accomplished it, that should tell us the magnitude of the work that has been done and is being done to affect the African operating on a level that is unprecedented. Because a part of the miseducation of our people is that we've been domesticated in all the countries that we exist in and not allowed to have international persona, or an international perspective, or international presence. But through the Diaspora African Forum, through our ambassador, we have an international presence. We're under a forum whereby we can make contributions international to the destiny of Mother Africa and people of African descent, like we've never had before. So in that respect, as I said, words cannot fit nor describe the magnitude of the work that has been done, that is being done, that we have a full credential ambassador. We have a fully recognized institution that has the attention of all of Mother Africa and its diaspora in an official capacity, and that needs to be celebrated. It needs to be iterated. That needs to be supported, and that needs to be, as a vendor, that's so very much put into our minds as something that should be present in our everyday thought and celebrated.
Now, speaking about celebration, Rabbi had actually spoken a whole lot about ambassador. One thing you're forgetting is about yourself. Rabbi is that person, that icon that we will never forget. When we're talking about the PANAFEST and movement of a growing diaspora integration, as the ambassador that cabinet, we still have the NAN, that the he achiever, their soul. So on their very forum, seated here in the Embassy for the African Diaspora, under the capacity of Her Excellency Beteka Bennett, I would like to say thank you so much, NIE, for God bless you for your good work. And so this is how we draw down the curtains for this session of Black History Month celebration here in Accra, Ghana. This is the Diaspora African Forum. Thank you so much. It's a bye.